Hello, my name is Caleb Smith with the Rocket Miner newspaper, coming to you with an update for August 27th, 2020. The main two things that I would like to touch on tonight are editorials and other opinion pieces that appear in the Rocket Miner, and in particular, one specific piece written by a member of our staff on the U.S. Electoral College that generated a lot extra attention and online comments than those pieces often do. But before we get into that stuff, I'd just like to offer some updates on some other stories that we've been tracking. The storm previously known as Hurricane Laura did make U.S. landfall last night in Louisiana. So far, 6 people's deaths have been attributed to the storm. This is a case where officials stress that it will probably be days, perhaps longer, until we know the full extent of the damage. But at least at minimum, we know right now that at least 900,000 homes and businesses are without power. The storm was judged to be one of the more powerful ones on record. Its top wind speed of 150 miles per hour ranks it amongst the strongest on record in the United States. Just kind of to give you an extra idea of its potency, storms of this type typically move faster over water, less friction, less things slowing it down, and once they reach the shore, they very quickly are diminished in power and potency. In Laura's case, it took 11 hours after landfall until it lost its hurricane status. That is an incredibly long time and quite a distance across land. Even as of Thursday evening, it remained categorized as a tropical storm with winds of 40 miles per hour. A lot of rainfall is expected, along with potential tornadoes in Mississippi and Arkansas this evening. Turning to an account from somebody who hunkered down during the storm with family and said that when the storm passed over its house, it did so with the roar of a jet engine. Brett Gaiman said, "It looks like 1,000 tornadoes went through here. It's just destruction everywhere." He went on to say, "There are houses that are totally gone. They were there yesterday, but now gone." Another follow-up story involves the protests by professional athletes and multiple different associations and pastimes. The NBA continued to see its playoff games canceled this evening, like yesterday. The player walkout, and some are calling it a boycott or wildcat strike. The idea is that they're sitting out these games in protest of racial injustice, particularly the recent death of a black man who was shot in the back fatally by cops in a community just south of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And just the continuing perception that in some areas, not everywhere, but in some places, different treatment is doled out to people depending on certain individuals and their skin color. And looking at this was something that was started out by the Milwaukee Bucks last night and has spread to some extra bits or extra places. The 3 games, playoff games, in the protective bubble to keep people from catching coronavirus. This lockdown center in Florida didn't see any more games played. Major League Baseball saw the postponement of 7 games. This is after 3 games were postponed on Thursday. In the NFL, 9 football teams canceled practices on Thursday. The AP notes that the league is still set to start its season on September 10th. National Hockey League announced that 2 days of playoff games will be postponed. This is after games were played in their entirety on Wednesday. There were In general, it looked like some golf and tennis events went on as normally scheduled, though some individual athletes chose not to participate. The Thursday night games and for our 6 games from the WNBA were canceled tonight. Previously, Major League Soccer saw 5 of its 6 scheduled matches canceled Thursday. They didn't have any games canceled tonight, so nothing changed there. Going back to the NBA, league officials have said that they're hopeful that the playoffs will resume either Friday or Saturday. That remains to be seen. And then, going to the promised meat of this update, I want to talk a little bit about editorials. We publish a lot of different perspectives, sometimes views that are in conflict, sometimes in our news pages. Sometimes it's where we're lining out how this person argues this viewpoint and this strategy going forward. And then here's the perspective of another person. I sometimes struggle with some other people where we've had some conflicts lately where we're saying, like, that's a political story. And I sometimes push back on that because I'm like, this is just a presentation of the two sides. Whether it's the stories that we're producing on our own staff, stories that we're using from sister papers or from the Associated Press, I try to find, when I'm pulling stories, and I know others on the staff do this something similar, we try to find a straightforward perspective, one that's not, especially in stories where there are multiple opinions in play, that isn't necessarily giving too much favor to one over the other when there are two legitimate arguments to be listened to. There are some times that I've looked at the AP story and went, no, that's too slanted. We're not going to put this on the website. We're not going to put this on Facebook. There are also some times that I recognize that some of this stuff's subjective, just because I think that this is a more nonpartisan result. I know not everybody's going to agree with my perspective. The same way I don't agree with all the opinions that I see online. In opinion pieces, things are, when it comes to the pages we have, I welcome as much local letters to the editor that we get. We get a certain number from the state level, and just based on space and the fact that we're only printing twice a week, I can't get in as much as we used to in the past. And that does make me sad. We put, honestly, there are probably more opinion pieces that appear just online than what appears in the print edition. And just because you're seeing a perspective or opinion not there in the print doesn't mean that it's not out there online. There's also some of them are coming from state or even national agencies. U.S. Department of the Interior sends us stuff on a surprisingly regular basis. And those are places that we try to get those online. In addition to, we do have a couple local columnists that consistently give us stuff. Reverend Carlson, Dave Simpson are the ones who have been providing content for us for the longest. In addition to, we've had some letters to the editor writers that on some stretches are practically columnists themselves for how frequently they send us stuff. And within that page, and within that spot that's allotted to them, there are some pieces that are very directed toward one side. Because within that space that they've squared out, this is where they're presenting their case. I like it when I get two of a similar topic so I can have them both side by side. There are some times where I recognize that while I may not have two to begin with, if someone feels extra strongly about a topic, that it may generate a letter to the editor, and that may generate a letter to the editor. And there's been a handful of times, not too many, but there have been a couple times we've had 4 or 5 letters in a sequence, even moving more beyond the original 2 who were writing back and forth, weighing in on a subject, and we try to get as much of those in there as we can. We're a bit, like I said, we limited on space, but other than just a little polish for grammar, punctuation, we have sometimes edited stuff for length. When we do that, we signal that in print and also typically post it in its entirety online. And the idea is that we welcome a wide bit of views. And personally, I'm not just looking for people that I agree with. That's not my job as the editor of the newspaper. I want to present, hopefully, the best possible arguments of the views that are out there. If I was only limited to the stuff that I believed, I'm not doing the readers a service. Even if you're reading something and you don't agree with the topic, or you don't agree with the stance, I still think that we should be informed and understanding of what the arguments are. That helps us improve our own understanding. This may actually even help us prepare our own defenses. If we're if you have a particularly verbally contested Thanksgiving, you will be able to stand up to certain family members a bit more if you know what the strongest arguments are on both sides and you've prepared your responses to that. There are some times where I get to an end of a piece and I'm like, that is a good argument of the sides of that. I don't agree with it with a minute, but I believe they made the best possible good faith argument of their stance, and I better understand where they're coming from. Or sometimes I'm even going, okay, I don't agree with you all the way, but I see little bits here and there that I need to understand. I mean, even when it comes to my personal writing, I pressure myself to read a lot of perspectives that I don't necessarily agree with. That's how I can help get informed of what's going on. That's why if I have a hole in my understanding, my outlook, I can't patch that if I'm not paying attention. And if I'm not aware of that, I'm poorly equipped to be able to share it with other people. One of the things that cracks me up about this most recent piece written by our Lifestyles reporter Connie on the Electoral College is that a lot of the arguments that she presents in this have been strongly and vigorously debated by the staff, back and forth. It's Connie puts her name on this, saying that this is what she personally believes. I can tell you that that's not everybody on the staff lines up on that viewpoint. It's just an argument that typically comes around this time of year with the election. Connie wanted to take the lead in presenting it because there are, personally, I think there's some problems with the Electoral College. I also personally haven't seen a better system in place, so until we have that, I say let's keep it as it is and recognize its flaws and maybe be thinking what can be done. And I appreciate the people online who note that this is a constitutional process. If you don't like it, there are ways to change it. It takes a lot of work, and if you feel that strongly about it, start working with working your way down the list of the congressional delegations now, because like I said, it'll take a constitutional amendment that has to be passed by Congress, and then a majority of the state houses across this good land, and most of these amendments that have been passed in the last couple of decades, and we've had very few passed in my lifetime. Most of them have just have taken years of effort and debate and exchanging of ideas, clashing of minds and perspectives. It takes work. That's part of what I like about the democratic system. Not just one person says, this is what the rule's going to be, and you all got to play by what I want. It's what we, the people, together come up with. It takes compromise. It takes extra bit. That's part of why we have the Electoral College to begin with. There were those who wanted all the power with the people. There are those who wanted all the power with those who are in charge, and that's why this Electoral College system was set up, was that people vote for representatives, electors, and the electoral vote determines which one of these people will be voting. But when it comes to the election, you're voting for an elector, for Trump, for Biden, for Joe Jorgensen, for your writing candidate of choice. Still, honestly, Tiger King's going to get more than a few votes this election. Potentially more than he got in this than the last time he ran. But anyway, it was a solution that didn't please everybody, but it was something that the group decided upon on themselves. And perhaps as a overall country, that will choose to be changed. And it's one of those things where it would take a lot of people, more than a single party, to be able to make this change. It would need to, like any other constitutional amendment, need a great groundswelling of support across the land. And maybe we'll see that, maybe we won't. To be prepared for the discussion that has come up pretty consistently since I've personally seen in every election since just before the 2000 election and everyone since then. And whether there's a discrepancy between the popular vote and the electoral vote this year, we're still going to see this pop up fairly regularly every presidential election for the foreseeable future. So I hope that you do take the time to sit down and examine the arguments. I'm not asking you to agree with them. Like I said, oh, there jumps the cat. Oh, sorry for that earth-shattering moment. I'm not asking you to agree with all the perspectives presented by the Rocket Miner. I worry about the person that agrees with every single editorial we have, because that's set up for a schizophrenic outlook, that's a conflictory one, and I'm hoping that you're finding the best pieces of all the things that we're offering. And if you feel strongly about this subject, please write us a letter to the editor. Write us a longer piece. Honestly, there are a couple letters to the editor that appear as short opinion pieces just because, well, once it gets to be about more than 12 inches, it's really more opinion. We label it more as an opinion piece than just a letter to the editor. But please, share your outlooks. We're doing that a little bit of ourselves. We're looking for other people who we think are presenting interesting stories, interesting outlooks that people need to be aware of. You never know where you might learn something new, where something just might change your mind, or at least ask you to challenge your outlook. Anyway, this is Caleb Smith with the Rocket Miner newspaper, wishing you a good day and a safe tomorrow. Bye.